So welcome to the next in our online series of messages brought to you by the friends at First Church Rowley. This is Reverend Tom Bentley, the pastor, hoping that your journey is going the way you hope and pray. If you'd like to know more about the work and ministry of First Church Rowley, there'll be a little information at the end of this video. So thank you for spending time with us. Peace. So grace to you and peace from our friend Jesus. I think back over the years and how often I've traveled somewhere in the world. I've been to Brazil, Ireland a number of times, Europe, all over different places. I remember with fondness those trips. Occasionally, when I went on a trip, I had to go alone. Those are not my favorite memories. Traveling alone, it can be interesting, but something was lacking. Having a companion brings out the opportunity for sharing, for connecting. It's safer, it's easier in some ways. And when you're through and you're back home, you have these wonderful memories you can reflect on, both of you together. Remember the time when? Yes, that's travel at its best. Life is a journey. It's traveling, isn't it? The itinerary seems to be quite complicated often, and we don't really know what to do next. We get lost. We need a road map. The Apostle Paul was in communication with lots of small groups that were working to follow Jesus. They were on the journey with him. And Paul writes letters. Let's take a look at what he said in Romans. God's Spirit beckons. There are things to do and places to go. This resurrection life you receive from God is not a timid grave-tending life. It's adventurously expectant. Greeting God with a childlike, "What's next, Papa?" God's Spirit touches our spirits and confirms who we really are. We know who He is, and we know who we are. Father and children. And we know we're going to get what's coming to us, an unbelievable inheritance. We go through exactly what Christ goes through. If we go through the hard times with Him, then we're certainly going to go through the good times with Him. That's what the journey is, isn't it? Going through good times and hard times. But going through those things together with somebody, with companions. So what's your community? Where do you find your companions? Yes, there's social groups where you work perhaps for an income. But where's your community of choice, the one that feeds your soul, where you find a spiritual connection, a place where you can go and talk about the deeper yearnings of life. Yes, why are we here? Questions like that. Where do we go when we die? What happens? Is this all an accident, or is there some intentional force? We can ask those questions with close companions, our fellow journeyers. Life is an adventure. Paul invites the early church to be on an adventure. And off they went. And there's many adventuresome stories to share about how they struggled to bring this word of love and transformative grace into a world that was cruel and not happy to have them there traveling with them. Those Christians were persecuted. They went through the hard times. Paul talks about that. They went through what Jesus went through, he says. And sometimes they did. Yet they also are blessed by being able to be together in a moment of celebration. We're a very individualistic society, this United States of America. We have elevated individualism to a new level of idolatry. We worship it. It's the sacred space. Don't mess with my individuality, we say. We're trained to be nonconformists. And the price of all that now is isolation, depression, suicide, chaos, even violence. It is a very strange time. The institutions that once were there to help us be in community together are deteriorated and falling apart. going out of existence for lack of interest or resources. And of course, I'm speaking about the smaller Protestant churches. That's one institution, but there's many institutions that suffer where they were able to offer a community, and that was a commodity folks needed to survive, and they yearned for it. Now, all of a sudden, we don't seem to think we need that, but we do. The poor people in Ukraine, one thing they got out of that horror show is community and solidarity. And I wouldn't wish that on any human being. But that's what's possible when the times get tough. There needs to be a reason why, and we have to make that reason why. Why are we suffering? Why are we struggling? When we're traveling for leisure and fun, it's good to have companions. It's better, in fact. When we're back home struggling to make it, we need companions in our day-by-day journey. Maybe we have a partner at home with us who loves us and we love that person. But a real community is a group of people that we don't find it easy to relate to, a group of people whom we don't always feel love and affection. That community is an intentional community. And I've just described most churches. They're not perfect. I've described a lot of institutions, nonprofits, and groups like that, quirky people coming together, not because they chose each other because they really like each other, but they believe in the mission. And that is what is the good time, the adventure, when we're struggling with the bad times and trying to make things work. So I encourage you, if you don't have a community you could name right away, when I ask that question, what's your community, what's your spiritual community, you don't have one, then ponder how to find one. It doesn't have to be a church, but you might find hospitality there and receptivity. There are many groups that are forming informally across our culture as people seek to understand the deeper questions of life and get renewal. And maybe you have a group of people that you turn to now. And if so, that's a wonderful gift. But God is calling us to be in community. That's who we are. That's what we are. And that's how we find our deeper understanding about life and the deepest love that's available, that's possible. And I say in faith that comes from this guy Jesus, who really is a lover at final measure. And he loves you just the way you are. And he loves everybody in the community you're in or not in, just the way they are. We're called to be together, though, and work out how to be more effective in our mission and our purpose. So in Jesus' name, I can say thank you for being on the journey in this time of conversation. Thank you and goodbye. So thank you again for spending time with us. If you'd like to know more about the First Congregational Church of Raleigh, or we call it First Church Raleigh, you can go online at firstchurchraleigh.org. And of course, we'd always like to hear from you. You can call us anytime at 978-948-3993. So peace and best wishes. Goodbye.